Shadows in the wilderness. The forest breathed. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, a living, breathing entity that seemed to pulse with an ancient rhythm. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches swaying gently in the breeze, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. It was a place of both beauty and danger, where the line between life and death was often blurred. Pine needles crunched under his boots. Each step was deliberate, calculated. The forest floor was a tapestry of fallen leaves and twigs, a testament to the cycle of life and decay. His boots left faint imprints, a temporary mark on the ever-changing landscape. He moved with the confidence of someone who had walked these paths 1,000 times, his senses attuned to every sound, every movement. He moved like a phantom, a whisper in the vast Montana wilderness. His presence was almost ethereal, a ghostly figure that seemed to blend seamlessly with the shadows. The forest was his domain, a place where he could disappear without a trace. He knew every tree, every rock, every hidden trail. To the untrained eye, he was invisible, a mere figment of the imagination. Jedediah Jed Carter, a man born and bred for the hunt. His eyes were sharp, scanning the forest with a predator's intensity. He wore his hunting gear like a second skin, every piece of equipment meticulously chosen for its utility. His movements were fluid, almost animalistic, a testament to years of experience and training. He was a master of his craft, a hunter who had earned his place in the wilderness. Years spent stalking elk and wrestling grizzlies had honed his senses to razor sharpness. He could hear the faintest rustle of leaves, see the slightest flicker of movement. His instincts were finely tuned, a survival mechanism that had been honed through countless encounters with the wild. He was a man who understood the delicate balance of nature, who respected the creatures he pursued. He was a predator, as much a part of this land as the creatures he pursued. His presence was a reminder of the primal instincts that lay dormant within all of us, a connection to a time when survival depended on skill and cunning. He moved with a grace that belied his size, a silent shadow that slipped through the underbrush with ease. The forest was his hunting ground, a place where he could test his mettle against the forces of nature. Miles away, a different kind of hunter prepared. In a secluded spot, hidden from prying eyes, another figure was getting ready for the hunt. This was no ordinary hunter, but a man with a very specific set of skills. His equipment was state-of-the-art, designed for precision and efficiency. Every piece of gear was carefully inspected, every detail meticulously checked. He was a professional, a man who took his craft seriously. Sergei the Serpent Kozlov, his code name a testament to his lethal patience. He was a sniper, a master of long-range combat. His eyes were cold and calculating, his mind focused on the task at hand. He moved with the precision of a machine, every action deliberate and controlled. His camouflage blended seamlessly with the rocky terrain, making him nearly invisible to the naked eye. He was a predator of a different kind, a man who hunted with a rifle instead of a bow. Atop a rocky crag, camouflaged against the granite, he lay still as death. His breathing was slow and steady, his body perfectly still. He was a master of patience, able to wait for hours, even days, for the perfect shot. His rifle was an extension of his will, a finely tuned instrument of destruction. He watched the landscape through his scope, every detail magnified, every movement scrutinized. He was a hunter in his own right, a man who thrived in the shadows. His rifle, a finely tuned instrument of destruction, was an extension of his will. It was a tool of precision, designed for one purpose: to eliminate his target. He adjusted the scope, his fingers moving with practiced ease. Every detail was important, every adjustment critical. He was a perfectionist, a man who demanded the best from himself and his equipment. The rifle was more than just a weapon, it was a symbol of his skill and dedication. Every breath, every twitch of his finger was measured. He was in complete control, his mind and body working in perfect harmony. The world around him seemed to fade away, leaving only the target in his sights. He was a predator, a hunter who thrived in the shadows. The forest was his domain, a place where he could test his skills and prove his worth. In the end, it was a battle of wits and wills, a test of who was the better hunter. Born of the wild, forged in fire. In the heart of the wilderness, where the trees whisper ancient secrets and the wind carries the scent of pine and earth, two men were shaped by their environments, molded by their experiences. Their stories, though worlds apart, were bound by a common thread of survival and resilience. Jed lived by the old ways. He was a man of the forest, a guardian of the natural world. His days were spent in harmony with the land, understanding its rhythms and respecting its power. The forest was not just his home, it was his teacher, his sanctuary. He respected the land, took only what he needed. Every action was deliberate, every choice made with care. When he gathered berries, he left enough for the animals. When he hunted, he used every part of the animal, honoring its sacrifice. This was the way of his ancestors, a tradition passed down through generations. Hunting was a ritual, a dance between man and nature. It required patience, skill, and a deep understanding of the forest. Jed moved silently, his senses attuned to the slightest movement, the faintest sound. The hunt was not just about survival, it was a connection to the primal forces of life and death. He knew the language of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig. Each sound told a story, each sign a clue. Jed could read the forest like a book, understanding its moods and predicting its changes. This knowledge was his greatest asset, a skill honed over years of living in the wild. He was a master tracker, able to follow the faintest trail. Whether it was the delicate imprint of a deer's hoof or the subtle disturbance of a broken branch, Jed could decipher the signs left behind. Tracking was an art, a blend of intuition and observation, and Jed was a true artist. Sergei was a product of the Cold War. Born in a time of tension and uncertainty, he was forged in the crucible of conflict. The harsh winters of Russia were his training ground, the unforgiving landscape shaping him into a formidable warrior. His life was one of discipline and duty, every action driven by a sense of purpose. Trained in the unforgiving steppes of Russia, he was a ghost, a phantom. Sergei moved with a precision that was almost supernatural, his presence felt but never seen. The snow-covered forests were his domain, a place where he could disappear and reappear at will. His training had made him a master of stealth, a shadow in the night. The Spetsnaz had honed him into a weapon, cold, calculating, deadly. Every aspect of his training was designed to eliminate weakness, to create a soldier who could operate in the most extreme conditions. Sergei's mind was as sharp as his blade, his body a finely tuned instrument of war. He was the embodiment of precision and efficiency. His world was one of shadows and whispers, of long waits and instant action. Sergei's patience was legendary, his ability to remain still for hours unmatched. He could strike without warning, his actions swift and decisive. In the silent moments before the storm, he found clarity and focus, his mind a calm sea in the midst of chaos. He was a surgeon of death, his rifle, his scalpel. Each shot was precise, each target carefully chosen. Sergei's skill with a rifle was unparalleled, his accuracy a testament to years of rigorous training. In his hands, the rifle was not just a weapon, but an extension of his will, a tool for executing his mission with deadly precision. The target. Elusive and dangerous, their quarry was no ordinary prey. A man, they called him the Ghost, a phantom who moved silently through the mountains, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. The authorities were baffled. Desperate, they turned to two hunters, each a legend in their own right. Jed saw it as a test, a challenge to his skills, to his understanding of the wild. He would track this ghost, bring him to justice. It was his duty, his birthright. Sergei saw a mission, another target to eliminate. He felt no hatred, no anger, just a cold, professional detachment. He would find this ghost, terminate him. It was his job, his purpose. The hunt begins, a game of patience. Days bled into weeks. The wilderness swallowed them whole. Jed moved like a wraith, his senses attuned to the slightest disturbance. He found footprints, broken branches, the ghostly remnants of campfires. The ghost was elusive, but he was leaving a trail. Sergei, perched on his rocky throne, scanned the landscape with his scope. He was a hawk, his eyes piercing the dense foliage. He studied maps, analyzed wind patterns, calculated bullet drop. He would find the perfect vantage point, the perfect moment to strike. Two paths converge, clash of methods. Their paths crossed at a deserted logging camp. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. Jed felt it first, a sixth sense tingling at the back of his neck. He was being watched. Sergei saw him first, a flicker of movement in the shadows of the derelict buildings. A hunter, out of his element. He raised his rifle, the crosshairs settling on Jed's chest. The killing ground, precision versus instinct. A twig snapped. Jed whirled, his hand instinctively reaching for his hunting knife. He saw the glint of sunlight on metal, the unwavering eye of the scope, staring back at him. Sergei's finger tightened on the trigger. He had his target, the kill shot, lined up, but something stayed his hand. A flicker of doubt, a hesitation he had never felt before. This was no ordinary prey. This was a hunter just like him. Echoes in the silence, a life taken, lessons learned. The moment stretched, a silent standoff in the heart of the wilderness. Then, a gunshot shattered the stillness. Not from Sergei's rifle, but from the trees beyond the clearing. A single echoing shot. The ghost was dead. The authorities found his body days later. A single bullet wound to the chest. The official report called it a suicide. Only Jed and Sergei knew the truth. The long walk back changed men. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature. The rustling leaves, the distant calls of birds, and the soft crunch of their boots on the forest floor. The golden hour cast a warm glow, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere as they trudged through the dense foliage. They never spoke of that day, of the silent understanding that passed between them. The silence was not just a lack of words, but a profound communication that transcended language. Each step they took was heavy with the weight of their shared experience, an unspoken bond that neither could fully articulate. They parted ways as they had met, shadows melting back into the wilderness. The forest seemed to swallow them whole, as if it had been waiting for their return. The paths they took diverged, yet the memory of their encounter lingered, a haunting presence in the back of their minds. Jed returned to his solitary life, forever marked by the encounter. The forest, once a place of solace and routine, now felt different. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl reminded him of that day. He found himself looking over his shoulder, haunted by the shadows of his past. He had glimpsed a different kind of hunter, a different kind of world. The forest was no longer just a hunting ground, it was a place of profound revelations. He saw the interconnectedness of life, the delicate balance that held the ecosystem together. It was a humbling realization, one that made him question his place in the world. It was a sobering reminder that the line between predator and prey could be terrifyingly thin. The roles could reverse in an instant, and the hunter could become the hunted. This newfound awareness made him more cautious, more respectful of the life around him. He moved with a newfound grace, a silent acknowledgement of the fragility of existence. Sergei disappeared back into the shadows, his mission complete. But the shadows were not just a physical space, they were a metaphor for the darkness within him. He had always been a man of few words, a solitary figure who thrived in the silence of the forest. Yet, something had changed, but something had shifted within him. The forest, once a place of refuge, now felt like a labyrinth of memories and emotions. He found himself pausing more often, lost in thought, questioning the path he had chosen. The mission that had once seemed so clear now felt like a distant echo, a whisper in the wind. The cold detachment, the unwavering certainty was gone. In its place was a sense of vulnerability, a realization that he was not as invincible as he had once believed. The forest had a way of stripping away the layers, revealing the raw, unfiltered truth. And the truth was, he was just a man, no different from the prey he hunted. He had seen his own reflection in the eyes of another hunter, and it had shaken him to his core. It was as if he had looked into a mirror and seen a version of himself that he had never known existed. This encounter had left an indelible mark on his soul, a reminder that even in the vast wilderness one could not escape the truths that lay within.